The pristine white corridors of the new Earth Embassy on Centauri Prime gleamed under the soft illumination of artificial daylight. Dr. Zixtal's footsteps echoed against the polished floors as they made their way to the environmental control room. The xenobiologist had specifically requested this assignment, eager to study Earth's first diplomatic mission to their sector. After 3 cycles of meticulous preparation, they would finally begin their research. Their research assistant, junior scientist Mix, followed close behind, carrying an array of sophisticated scanning equipment. The atmospheric composition readings are within expected parameters, Mix reported, their azure scales shifting colors with each movement, though there are some anomalous particles in the filtration system. Dr. Zixtal's antenna twitched with interest. Anomalous how? They adjusted their protective suit, a standard precaution when studying new species. The suit's sensors could detect the slightest changes in the surrounding environment. The particles appear organic in nature, but they don't match any known contamination patterns, Mix said, pulling up a holographic display of the latest scans. They're accumulating at an unusual rate. Dr. Zixtal leaned forward, their 6 eyes focusing on the data streams. The particles were indeed peculiar, microscopic, translucent, and distinctly cellular in structure. They reached for their personal analysis unit, a gift from the Galactic Science Academy, upon achieving their doctorate. Transfer the samples to the quantum microscope, they instructed, their professional excitement building. This could be their first significant discovery about human biology. The Academy had provided basic information about Earth's dominant species, but much remained unknown about their daily biological processes. The quantum microscope hummed to life, its crystal display projecting a 3-dimensional image of the mysterious particles. Dr. Zixtal's excitement quickly transformed into confusion, then into something approaching horror. Their scales paled to a sickly yellow as the analysis results appeared on screen. "This can't be correct," they whispered, their voice trembling. "Run the sequence again." Mix complied, but the results remained unchanged. The particles were unmistakably of human origin, specifically dead human skin cells, thousands of them, floating freely in the embassy's filtration system. Dr. Zixtal's mind raced with implications. Were the humans sick? Was this some kind of biological warfare? But the embassy staff seemed perfectly healthy, going about their duties without any sign of distress. "We need to observe them directly," Dr. Zixtal decided, trying to keep their voice steady. "Set up the high-resolution biomonitors in the main atrium. And Mix, let's keep this between ourselves for now. We don't want to cause unnecessary panic." They spent the next few hours discreetly installing monitoring equipment throughout the embassy's public areas. The humans barely noticed their presence, too busy with their diplomatic duties to pay attention to what appeared to be routine maintenance work. The results were more disturbing than they could have imagined. Every human in the embassy was actively shedding their outer layer. The process was continuous, invisible to the naked eye, but unmistakable under scientific observation. Even more shocking, the humans seemed completely unaware of their condition. According to these readings, Mex reported, their voice barely a whisper, an average human sheds approximately 50 million cells every day. Dr. Zixtal's protective suit suddenly felt too tight. They watched through the observation window as Ambassador Chen shared a laugh with her staff, casually brushing her arm and releasing a small cloud of skin cells into the air. 50 million, Dr. Zixtal repeated, their antenna now lying flat against their head in distress. And they just let it happen. They spent the rest of the day documenting everything, taking careful notes for what would surely become a groundbreaking paper. The humans continued their routines, completely oblivious to the horror they were inspiring in their alien observers. That night, Dr. Zixtal could barely rest, their mind filled with images of humans constantly shedding their outer layers like some kind of biological snowfall. They had come to study Earth's first diplomatic mission, but they had discovered something far more unsettling. The question now was, what should they do with this information? Morning brought no relief to Dr. Zixtal's troubled mind. They stood in the embassy's botanical garden, pretending to study the imported earth plants while actually observing a group of human diplomats having their morning coffee. Their data pad recorded everything, specially modified sensors tracking the invisible shower of cells that surrounded each human like a microscopic aura. "Another reading, please," they whispered to Mix, who was hidden behind a large fern, operating their more sensitive equipment. The junior scientist's scales had taken on a greenish tinge that blended perfectly with the foliage. "The rate increases with movement," Mex reported softly. "And, oh my, they appear to accelerate the process deliberately." Dr. Zixel's antenna quivered as they watched a human diplomat absent-mindedly scratch their neck. Their enhanced vision caught the resulting cascade of skin cells, and they had to suppress a shudder. The human continued chatting with their colleagues, completely unaware of what they had just done. The xenobiologist's research notes were becoming increasingly frantic. Day 2 of observation. Subjects continue uninhibited shedding. Most disturbing is their complete lack of awareness or concern. Working hypothesis. Humans have evolved beyond the need for body awareness, possibly due to their remarkably high cellular regeneration rate. Their investigation took them through every public area of the embassy. They documented humans in meeting rooms, at their desks, in the cafeteria. Each location told the same horrifying story. Humans were leaving pieces of themselves everywhere they went. Dr. Zixtal. Mix called out urgently from their observation point. "You need to see this." They hurried over to where Mix was staring at a new data reading. A human had just emerged from their private quarters after what they called a shower. The readings were off the charts. "They've accelerated the process using water and abrasive materials," Dr. Zixtal noted, their voice trembling slightly. "It appears to be some kind of ritualistic shedding behavior." The situation became even more complex when they discovered what humans called skin care routines. Through the embassy's security feeds, they watched in fascinated horror as humans deliberately applied various substances to their constantly shedding surfaces. "Are they trying to stop it?" Mix wondered aloud, watching the human apply something called moisturizer. "No," Dr. Zixtal replied, checking their readings. "If anything, these substances seem designed to optimize the shedding process. The implications are unsettling." Their research took an unexpected turn when they discovered something called exfoliation. Dr. Zixtal had to take a brief break to calm their nerves after witnessing a human deliberately accelerate their shedding using a specialized tool. "It's not just passive anymore," they recorded in their notes, their usual scientific detachment slipping. "They actively encourage it. They have created tools and rituals specifically for this purpose. The question is no longer just about the biological process. It's about their psychological relationship with it." As the day progressed, they compiled more and more evidence. Humans didn't just shed. They had built an entire culture around it. They had special cloths for removing dead skin cells, creams for softening them, and even treatments to speed up the process. That evening, Dr. Zixtal sat in their private laboratory, surrounded by data displays and sample analyses. They had to admit that despite their horror, there was something fascinating about human biology. How had they evolved this way? What advantage could constant cellular renewal possibly provide? "I think we have enough evidence to present to the Scientific Council," Mix suggested, organizing their findings. Dr. Zixtal nodded slowly, their antenna moving in the pattern that indicated deep thought. "We must proceed carefully. This information could cause considerable concern among our people. After all, these humans are not just visiting our worlds. They're establishing permanent diplomatic relations." They looked at their final notes for the day. Humans appear to exist in a constant state of cellular flux, perpetually renewing themselves while seeming to retain their basic form and consciousness. The philosophical implications alone are staggering. What does it mean to be human if they are literally not the same beings from one moment to the next? The question would have to wait. Tomorrow they would begin preparing their presentation for the council. The galaxy needed to know what kind of species they were dealing with. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Science Council sparkled with crystalline elegance, its transparent dome revealing the swirling purple clouds of Centauri Prime. Dr. Zixtel stood at the presentation podium, their scales shifting between professional blue and anxious green as they faced the assembled scientific elite from across the galaxy. Distinguished colleagues, they began, their voice steady despite their inner turmoil. What I am about to share will challenge our understanding of biological entities. Behind them, a holographic display illuminated the hall with a three-dimensional model of human skin cells. Senior Scholar Weeks, their former mentor, leaned forward with interest, all 8 eyes focused on the presentation. The rest of the council maintained their typical stoic demeanor, though several members' sensory appendages twitched with curiosity. As you know, I have spent the past quarter cycle studying our new diplomatic partners from Earth. What I discovered is, Dr. Zixtel paused, antenna quivering. Well, perhaps it's best if I show you. The hologram shifted to display a time-lapse recording of human skin cell shedding. The audience's reaction was immediate. A crystalline elder's facets clouded with shock, while a gaseous representative condensed slightly in distress. These images are recorded over a standard solar day. Dr. Zixtel continued. As you can observe, the human epidermis is in a constant state of renewal and decay. They shed approximately 50 million cells every day, each cell containing complete genetic material. The hall erupted with questions. Are they diseased? Called out one researcher. Is this some form of rapid decomposition? Asked another. A quantum consciousness representative flickered rapidly in what could only be described as panic. Mix, standing by the data controls, projected the next series of images. Most remarkably, Dr. Zixtel pressed on. This process appears to be not only natural but necessary for their survival. They have evolved specialized behaviors to facilitate it. The hologram displayed humans performing various skincare routines. The footage of someone using a loofah caused several junior researchers to flee the hall. Senior Scholar Vex's scales had turned a pale shade of ivory, indicating deep scientific concern. But surely, Vex interrupted, their voice trembling slightly. They must be aware of the biological material they're dispersing. The contamination risks alone. That's the most fascinating aspect, Dr. Zixtel replied, warming to their subject despite the growing horror in the room. They consider it so normal that they rarely think about it. They have built their entire civilization while constantly renovating themselves. The presentation continued with detailed analysis of human cellular regeneration rates. Dr. Zixtel explained how humans shed their entire outer layer every month, essentially creating a new version of their external selves 12 times per solar cycle. In conclusion, they said, approaching the end of their report, humans exist in a state of perpetual transformation. They are, in a very real sense, not the same beings from one moment to the next. The silence that followed was profound. Then the questions began again, more urgent this time. How do they maintain consciousness continuity? What happens to all the discarded material? Are they aware they're technically different entities each month? Should we revise our diplomatic protocols? Dr. Zixtel managed to maintain their composure, but Mex's scales had shifted to a worried purple. They both knew this information would have far-reaching consequences. Senior Scholar Vex finally rose to speak, their voice carrying the weight of authority. This discovery raises serious questions about our interaction policies with humans, if they are constantly dispersing genetic material. We must consider quarantine protocols, another council member interjected. Perhaps we should suspend diplomatic relations until we better understand the implications, suggested a third. Dr. Zixtel watched their carefully prepared scientific presentation transform into something they hadn't intended, a source of interstellar panic. In the back of the hall, they noticed a human diplomatic aide who had slipped in to observe the proceedings. The aide was taking notes, completely unaware that they were shedding thousands of skin cells with each small movement. The council session would continue for hours, but Dr. Zixtel already knew nothing would be the same after today. The question was, had they done the right thing by revealing this information? News traveled faster than light across the galactic information networks. Within days of Dr. Zixtel's presentation, the entire diplomatic quarter of Centauri Prime had transformed. Hovering warning signs flickered in multiple languages. Caution, human shedding zone, and protective suits required beyond this point. Ambassador Sarah Chen stared at the latest batch of canceled meetings on her holographic calendar. Her office, usually bustling with interstellar visitors, had been eerily quiet for the past 3 days. Even the maintenance robots had been reprogrammed to maintain a safe distance while performing their duties. Another cancellation, Ambassador, her digital assistant reported. The Crystalline Confederation cites concerns about microscopic particulate contamination as their reason for postponing trade negotiations. Sarah rubbed her temples, unknowingly releasing a small cloud of skin cells that sent a nearby environmental sensor into a frenzy. This is getting ridiculous. We've been here for months. Why is this suddenly an issue? Her answer came in the form of a scientific paper that had gone viral across the galactic networks. The document, authored by Dr. Zixtel, included startlingly detailed observations of human biological processes, complete with microscopic imagery and alarming statistics. "Look at this," her deputy ambassador said, projecting a news feed. "They're installing specialized filtration systems in every building that might host humans. The gaseous embassy has completely sealed their atmospheric chambers." The situation grew more absurd by the hour. Restaurants across the diplomatic quarter posted new policies. Human patrons must wear full containment suits, or simply, no humans. We apologize for the inconvenience. One particularly panicked establishment had installed a decontamination chamber at its entrance. In the embassy's conference room, the human diplomatic team gathered for an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense, though not as tense as the environmental sensors, which were now registering their collective skin cell shedding with persistent warning beats. "The Quantum Collective has suspended all physical meetings," reported one staff member. "They're insisting on holographic communications only." "The Crystalline Embassy sent us a bill for upgrading their air purification systems," added another. "They're claiming it as a necessary diplomatic expense." Sarah paced the room, her mind racing. This wasn't just about social discomfort anymore. It was affecting real diplomatic progress. Trade negotiations, cultural exchange programs, and scientific collaborations were all grinding to a halt. "Has anyone actually talked to this Dr. Zixtel?" she asked, stopping by the window. Outside, a group of alien tourists was taking photos of the embassy while wearing what appeared to be hazmat suits. "They're scheduled to present their findings to the Central Medical Council tomorrow," her deputy replied. "The presentation is being broadcast across all major networks. They're calling it the most important xenobiological discovery of the cycle." Sarah watched as a delivery drone approached the embassy, dropped its package from an unusually high altitude, and rushed away at maximum speed. The package, she noted with a mixture of amusement and frustration, was wrapped in biohazard-resistant material. "Enough is enough," she declared, turning to face her team. "We need to address this directly. Get me everything you can find on Dr. Zixtel's research. And someone please contact Earth's Xenobiology Department. We need our own experts on this." As if to emphasize the urgency of the situation, a small cleaning robot scurried across the floor, its sensors specifically calibrated to detect and collect human skin cells. It paused briefly near Sarah's feet, causing her to step back in annoyance. "And someone please reprogram these robots. I feel like I'm being stalked by vacuum cleaners." The meeting concluded with a clear mission. They needed to change the narrative around human biology before the situation spiraled completely out of control. As the team dispersed, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. Who would have thought that something as natural as shedding dead skin cells could cause an interstellar incident? Little did she know, Dr. Zixtel's next presentation would make the current situation seem tame by comparison. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the embassy's main laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing cellular regeneration patterns from various species across the galaxy. She had spent the last 3 days preparing for this presentation, and now everything had to be perfect. The biometric sensors are calibrated, her assistant reported, adjusting the final settings on the quantum imaging array. Though I still think it's risky to invite them here in person. Sarah smiled as she reviewed her presentation notes. Sometimes the best way to overcome fear is to face it directly. Besides, they're all wearing protective suits anyway. The laboratory doors slid open, admitting a group of alien scientists led by Dr. Zixtal. Their environmental suits gleamed under the laboratory lights, and their collective anxiety was evident in their cautious movements and rapidly shifting scale colors. "Welcome, everyone," Sarah began, her voice warm and professional. "Thank you for accepting my invitation, especially given the current concerns about human biology." She gestured to the first holographic display, which showed a time-lapse of a tree shedding its leaves. Let's start with something familiar. The natural cycle of renewal isn't unique to humans. It's fundamental to life itself. The display shifted to show various examples: a crystal growing and reshaping itself, a gaseous being exchanging particles with its environment, and a quantum entity fluctuating between states. Several of the scientists' antennae twitched with interest. "Even your own species," Sarah continued, nodding to Dr. Zixtal, "undergoes constant molecular exchange with your environment. The scale may be different, but the principle is the same." She moved to the central display, which showed a complex three-dimensional model of human skin structure. What you've observed isn't decay or decomposition, it's optimization. Every species develops mechanisms to maintain itself in peak condition. Dr. Zixtal moved closer, their scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming their apprehension. But the scale of cellular loss is precisely calculated. Sarah completed the thought. "Watch this." She activated a simulation showing how skin cell shedding helped prevent bacterial colonization and maintain skin health. It's a defense mechanism, not a defect. The audience's attention was completely captured now. Sarah proceeded to demonstrate how various species across the galaxy had evolved different but equally fascinating methods of self-maintenance. A crystalline being's surface renewal, a gaseous entity's particle exchange. All were variations on the same biological theme. The universe, she explained, has found countless ways to solve the same problem: how to maintain a living system in a constant state of renewal without losing its essential nature. She saved her most impressive demonstration for last. Using the quantum imaging array, she showed real-time cellular regeneration in her own hand. The process, when viewed at the molecular level, was beautiful. A coordinated dance of death and renewal that maintained the perfect balance. "What you're seeing isn't just random shedding," she explained. "It's one of the most sophisticated self-maintenance systems in known biology. Each cell knows exactly when to detach, ensuring that new healthy cells are always ready to take their place." The scientists were now clustering around the displays, their initial fear forgotten in their fascination. Even Dr. Zixtal's scales had shifted to the deep blue of intense scientific interest. "But the dispersal of genetic material," one scientist began, "is completely harmless," Sarah assured them. "These cells are effectively inert, and our immune systems have co-evolved with this process over millions of years. In fact," she pulled up another display showing the protective properties of human skin. "This constant renewal is one of our best defenses against environmental threats." As the presentation continued, Sarah could see the shift in their audience's perception. What had seemed horrifying was beginning to look remarkable instead. Dr. Zixtal was taking rapid notes, their antennae now showing patterns of excitement rather than fear. "There's so much more to explore," Sarah concluded. "Instead of seeing this as a problem to contain, imagine what we could learn from each other's biological adaptations." The laboratory, which had begun the day as a place of careful containment, had transformed into a space of shared discovery. And in the eyes of their alien visitors, Sarah could see the first glimmers of understanding replacing fear. The accident happened during the third week of collaborative research. A junior diplomat knocked over a container of heated xenological samples, splashing several researchers with the caustic solution. Dr. Zixtal watched in horror as both human and alien scientists were rushed to the medical bay. The incident should have set interspecies relations back significantly. Instead, it became the breakthrough they never expected. Dr. Zixtal stood in the observation room of the medical bay, their scales shifting between concerned purple and fascinated blue as they documented the recovery process. On one side of the glass, their colleague Dr. Venn lay quietly, their burned scales being treated with traditional regenerative compounds. On the other side, Sarah Chen sat on an examination table, her minor burns already showing signs of healing. "Impossible," Dr. Zixtal whispered, adjusting their monitoring equipment. "The cellular regeneration rate is off the charts." Mix, who had been analyzing the medical scans, projected a holographic comparison of the healing patterns. "The human skin is replacing damaged cells at 40 times our normal rate. And look at this protein synthesis pattern. It's unlike anything in our medical database." Dr. Zixtal's antennae quivered with excitement as they watched new skin cells form in real time. What they had once seen as a disturbing process of constant shedding now revealed itself as something extraordinary, an incredibly sophisticated system of cellular renewal and repair. "The very mechanism we feared," they noted in their research log, "may be the most remarkable adaptation we've encountered. Their constant cellular turnover allows for rapid healing and adaptation to injury." Sarah noticed their intense observation and waved them into the room. Despite their lingering caution about human shedding, scientific curiosity won out. Dr. Zixtal entered, their protective suits sensors whirring as they approached the examination table. "Your epidermis," they began, then paused to find the right words. "It's not just replacing itself, it's improving." Sarah nodded, holding out her arm to show the healing burn. "Our bodies are constantly learning and adapting. Each new layer of skin cells incorporates information from previous damage or stress. We don't just heal, we come back stronger." The implications hit Dr. Zixtal like a quantum wave collapse. Their own species, with their stable, unchanging biology, took months to recover from even minor injuries. They had evolved to prevent damage rather than adapt to it. But humans had evolved to embrace change itself. "We need to revise everything," they announced, their scales now pulsing with excited patterns. "Not just our research, but our entire approach to regenerative medicine." The next few days saw a flurry of activity in the research wing. Dr. Zixtal's team began mapping the complete human healing process, while human scientists shared their knowledge of cellular regeneration. The breakthroughs sparked interest across multiple scientific disciplines. "Look at these nerve regeneration patterns," Mex exclaimed during one late-night research session. "Their neuroplasticity is remarkable. They're literally rewiring themselves as they heal." Dr. Zixtal found themselves working side by side with Sarah, their former fear of human shedding forgotten in the excitement of discovery. They documented how human skin cells communicated during the healing process, coordinating their efforts like a microscopic civilization. "Your constant cellular renewal," they explained to a group of fascinated researchers, "isn't just maintenance. It's evolution in action. Each new generation of cells carries the potential for adaptation and improvement." The medical implications were staggering. Understanding human cellular regeneration could revolutionize treatment for species across the galaxy. What they had once seen as a biological hazard was proving to be one of the most valuable scientific discoveries in recent history. "Perhaps," Dr. Zixtal noted in their personal log that evening, "we should be less quick to fear what we don't understand. The very thing that terrified us might hold the key to helping countless beings live better lives." As they made this entry, they realized their protective suit had been set aside hours ago, forgotten in the excitement of scientific discovery. And somehow, That felt like progress too. The news spread across the galaxy like a quantum ripple. Human biology, once feared, was revolutionizing medical science. Dr. Zixtal found themselves at the center of a scientific renaissance, their laboratory now crowded with researchers from dozens of species, all eager to study human cellular regeneration. Another breakthrough in the crystalline healing protocols, Mechs announced, their scales gleaming with excitement as they projected the latest test results. By incorporating principles from human skin cell regeneration, we've improved recovery rates by 300%. The laboratory had transformed from a place of careful containment to a hub of interspecies collaboration. Where there had once been warning signs about human shedding, there were now detailed diagrams of cellular structures. The air filtration systems, previously designed to protect against human particles, now carefully collected them for study. Sarah Chen watched from her office as another group of alien scientists arrived at the embassy. "Remember when they used to run away from us?" she asked Dr. Zixtal, who had taken to working without their protective suit. "An embarrassing example of scientific prejudice," they replied, their scales shifting to a sheepish purple. "Though I must admit, watching the human use what you call a loofah still makes my antenna twitch." The research team had expanded to include experts from across the galaxy. The Crystalline Confederation, once so concerned about contamination, had sent their finest biochemists. The Gaseous Collective contributed their expertise in particle exchange dynamics. Even the quantum consciousness representatives had developed algorithms to model human cellular behavior. "Watch this," a crystalline researcher called out, demonstrating their latest innovation. Their typically rigid surface rippled slightly, mimicking the flexibility of human skin. "By studying your cellular renewal process, we've developed a way to repair our own structural damage." In the medical bay, success stories multiplied. A gaseous being, previously unable to maintain stable form after injury, recovered using treatment protocols inspired by human healing. A quantum entity learned to regulate its fluctuations by adopting principles from human homeostasis. Dr. Zixtal's original paper, once a source of panic, had been revised and expanded into a comprehensive study of regenerative biology across species. The new title read, "Adaptive Cellular Renewal: Lessons from Human Biology in Galactic Medicine." The applications extend beyond medicine, Mechs explained during a packed symposium. Their presentation showed how understanding human cellular renewal had led to improvements in everything from space station air recycling to quantum computing architecture. The diplomatic quarter reflected the change in attitude. Restaurants that had once banned human customers now proudly advertised human-inspired cleansing treatments for their patrons. The Crystalline Embassy installed a cellular regeneration spa, though they still politely requested that humans wear light protective coverings during formal functions. Sarah found Dr. Zixtal in the laboratory late one evening, reviewing data from their latest experiments. "Did you ever imagine," she asked, "when you first discovered our shedding cells, that it would lead to this?" The xenobiologist's scales rippled with thoughtful colors. "I was so focused on what I perceived as a problem that I almost missed the greatest discovery of my career. It makes me wonder what other miracles we dismiss simply because they're different from what we expect." Around them, the laboratory hummed with activity. A team of quantum researchers was modeling human cell division patterns. Crystalline scientists were adapting human healing mechanisms for their own unique biology. Gaseous beings swirled excitedly around new test results. The galaxy feared what they didn't understand, Mechs observed, joining them at the research station. Now they're learning that difference isn't just something to accept, it's something to celebrate. As if to emphasize the point, a small cleaning robot zipped past them, still programmed to collect human skin cells. But now it carefully preserved them for research instead of disposal. The future of galactic medicine was written in these microscopic particles, these tiny fragments of humanity that had once caused so much concern. Dr. Zixtal made a final note in their research log. "Perhaps the true measure of scientific progress isn't just what we discover, but how we learn to see familiar things in new ways. The grand opening of the Interstellar Center for Regenerative Studies drew dignitaries from across the galaxy. The building itself was a marvel of bioengineering, its surfaces designed to continuously renew themselves using principles derived from human cellular regeneration. Dr. Zixtel stood at the podium, their scales gleaming with pride as they addressed the assembled crowd. One solar cycle ago, they began, I stood before the scientific council warning them about what I saw as a biological hazard. Today, I stand before you celebrating what may be the greatest breakthrough in medical science since the discovery of quantum healing. The audience, a striking mix of various species, filled the ceremonial hall. Crystalline beings sparkled next to gaseous entities, while quantum consciousness representatives flickered in harmony. Most notably, nobody wore protective suits anymore, not even the notoriously cautious Hygiene Administration representatives. Sarah Chen, now serving as both ambassador and chief medical consultant, sat in the front row. She smiled at the memory of those first panicked days, when the simple act of scratching her nose had sent alien scientists diving for cover. Our research has led to over 300 medical breakthroughs. Dr. Zixtel continued, their antennae moving in patterns of excitement. The crystalline regeneration protocol alone has reduced healing time for structural damages by 80%. The gaseous particle enhancement treatment has revolutionized atmospheric medicine. Mix, recently promoted to senior researcher, operated the holographic displays showing successful cases from across the galaxy. Each image told a story of healing and adaptation, all inspired by the once-feared process of human cellular renewal. But perhaps our greatest discovery wasn't medical at all, Dr. Zixtel observed, their scales shifting to thoughtful blue. It was the reminder that what seems frightening at first glance might contain unexpected gifts. The very thing we feared became the solution we needed. The center's main laboratory complex was a testament to this new understanding. The air filtration systems, once designed to protect against human particles, now incorporated collection chambers for research. The cleaning robots have been reprogrammed as mobile sample collectors, gathering valuable data while maintaining the facilities. We've even discovered applications beyond medicine. They continued, gesturing to a display showing various technological innovations. The quantum computing sector has adopted human cellular patterns for self-repairing circuits. The atmospheric processing industry has revolutionized its filtration systems based on our research. In the audience, a group of junior scientists, representing species that were once barely on speaking terms, huddled together, excitedly discussing their latest collaborative project. Their research aimed to develop new technologies by combining the regenerative properties of human biology with various alien physiological advantages. Today, we open not just a research center, Dr. Zixtel announced, but a new chapter in galactic cooperation. Every species brings unique gifts to our collective knowledge. Our differences aren't barriers to overcome, they're opportunities to discover. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of the center's logo, a stylized image showing various cellular structures from different species intertwined in a beautiful cosmic dance. Below it, the center's motto read, Understanding Through Difference. Later that evening, during the reception, Dr. Zixtel found Sarah at the quantum punch bowl. You humans, they said, their scales showing amused patterns, never cease to amaze me. Just when we think we understand you, you shed something new. Sarah laughed, deliberately brushing some skin cells toward the nearest sample collector. Speaking of shedding, have you seen the new cellular art exhibition? They're using shed human skin cells to create microscopic sculptures. Now that, Dr. Zixtel replied, their antenna twitching with mirth, would have given me nightmares a year ago. Today, I find it rather beautiful. As the celebration continued around them, the center's automated systems quietly went about their work, collecting and analyzing the constant stream of human cellular material, no longer seen as waste, but as tiny seeds of future discoveries. In their private thoughts, Dr. Zixtel reflected on how far they'd come from their first terrified observations. The universe, they had learned, had a peculiar sense of humor. Sometimes the very thing that frightens us most turns out to be exactly what we need to grow.